Hi, I'm Sandy Schubert. If you guys don't know me, I'm the executive director of Tuleyome, and we're here tonight to celebrate Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument's 9th anniversary. We're going to look back a little bit while looking forward. I'm going to do a quick round of just intros of sort of our board members and our Tuleyome Advisory Council, so you guys know who the folks are. And a few of them are going to lead this, and then they'll talk to each other, and then we'll have an open discussion with everybody. So we have Stephen McCord. He's the volunteer president of our board. We have Bill Grabert. All our board members and advisory council members are volunteer. He's our treasurer. Bob Schneider, founder and on our advisory council. Glenn Holstein, longtime member of the board of directors. We have Ryan Henson. He is on our advisory council. Kim Longworth, she is on our advisory council. We've got Jake Glassman. He's our secretary on our board of directors. I'm sorry, Kim is on the board of directors. Sorry to get that wrong. Jake is on our board of directors. And I think that covers the board and TAC right now. I'm going to do one call out to Victoria Brandon, who is a longtime former board member of Tuleyome and our board president, and it's so great to see you on the call. So I'm going to turn this over to Bob Schneider, who is going to get everybody rocking and rolling here.
And interested, and some have asked a little bit about the history of Tuleyome, and it was formed in 2002, but we actually started talking about it about a year before that. And we focused on protecting and working with the Intercoast Range, or the northern Intercoast Range anyway, which are the mountains just west of the Sacramento Valley. And we kind of define that as maybe over to Highway 101. And nobody was particularly focused in a lot of that region, except maybe Ryan, who worked in a lot with the Mendocino National Forest. Victoria, who is in Lake County, did a lot of work. And on the call also is Deb Sally, who's now working with the Lake County group and done a lot of work there. We were a young organization, but we had an extremely experienced board of directors to start off with. And one of our first projects was working to establish Cache Creek as a state wild and scenic river, which it is now. That was done in 2005. And shortly following that was the Mike Thompson's Northwest California Wild and Scenic Heritage Bill. And Ryan worked a lot on that also. And we focused on, it established the Cedar Rush Wilderness, the Cache Creek Wilderness, additions to the Snow Mountain Wilderness, all that are in the Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument. And then the Yuki Wilderness abuts that to the north, and the Sanhedrin, and many other wilderness areas and wild and scenic rivers were established by Mike Thompson's bill in 2006. Tuleyome then focused on protecting some individual lands and pieces that they identified as having ecological value or providing access to public lands. We worked on that for quite some time. One of the parts of that was talking to John and Judy Amon, who later became board members, and Judy signed up, maybe she'll be on a bit later, to establish what was needed for the Berryessa Snow Mountain, or the Berryessa Peak Trail, which went from near the upper lake of Berryessa to the top of Berryessa Peak. So those were all kind of another facet of our work, was these land acquisitions or conservation easement acquisitions that we accomplished over the next 10, 15 years. How do you put all that together? And when people first started working in wilderness, including myself, it was about pretty places and wild, snow and ice we used to talk about. And then it became important to realize, oh, there are areas and lowland areas that we really ought to be protecting too. And the next big question is, how do we tie those together? Where are the wildlife corridors? Where do we protect, tying all these individual protected pieces together as a whole across a landscape? And for that, we first started working on a national conservation area, but our focus became developing, working on the establishment of the Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument. And as you all know, that was yesterday was the 9th anniversary of the establishment of the monument. The proclamation was signed in Washington, D.C. by President Obama. Sarah Husby was the executive director then and did a lot of work then. And then, we continued to consolidate that. We started working on a management plan, and then there was a new administration, and we had a lot of defensive work to do. And along these ways, we had our champions, Senator Boxer, Senator Feinstein, Congressman Garamendi, and Mike Thompson. We had our state champions, Bill Dodd and Cecilia Aguirre-Curry. So that's important. When you do these campaigns, you need to know what you're doing in terms of the science, I think. You need to know what your goals are. You need to have a campaign plan that you've referred to a lot. You need to build allies, so many allies between other conservation groups like Jorah Fogg, who's on, who works with conservation lands, or Mike Painter, who works with Utah groups, and all of these. And then you need to, you need the funding, and you just need good direction, and that's what we had to make that happen. The next big effort then was trying to protect what was Walker Ridge, or now Condor Ridge, from a wind development project, and that evolved into a campaign to permanently protect it. And go back a little bit to when we started the Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument campaign. Our first meeting, I think, was about 2008 in Woodland. And one of the things we did that was really important in that is we made a conscious decision that this needed to be an inclusive campaign. If you cared about public lands, you should be involved with this campaign. And we were welcoming. We built relationships with hunters and anglers and the off-road vehicle community, kayakers, hikers, backpackers. Businesses were really important. The political folks, conservation, or city chambers of commerce, city councils, board of supervisors, all these became part of that campaign. And that carried over when we decided to campaign for the protecting what was Walker Ridge. And one of the amazing things that happened to that campaign is while we were working on Berryessa Snow Mountain, geology was important to me, biological diversity was important to Glenn and Chad Roberts, wildlife connectivity was important, and all of us were concerned about this. We cared about cultural resource values, but we did not have contacts with tribes that had the capacity to work on these things at that point in time. When we came around to working on this in 2018, they were there. And Ryan, you want to take that away then?
What Bob is describing is what we characterized, and I don't remember who, it came from Congressman Mike Thompson and Senator Barbara Boxer between them, and it was to build proposals from the community up, or from the grassroots up. And so those are the ones that are the most popular, if you want to say, or have the best chance for popularity, the ones that are the most enduring over time, and the most welcome after designation. And you also have, if you play your cards right, you'll have a coalition that could push over time after designation for funding and everything and better management. So yeah, what Bob is describing is that kind of work of trying to bring everyone together. And in that process, you start, in Cal Wild's process, in particular, we start with tribes in the primordial ooze stage of putting something together. And Tuleyome is very much also deeply committed to good tribal engagement. And so, but then from there on, you start hitting the one group after another. Admittedly, start after tribes, starting with those who are most likely to be sympathetic, and then kind of going out from there. And over time, here in California, we have to prove to people like Senator Padilla that we've gone out and talked to everybody, including the opposition. And that's something that I've specialized in for my entire 30-year career. So yeah, thank you, Bob. But yeah, that's the way. Oh, let me just say, Berryessa expansion and but especially the expansion is an example of how to do it. So thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. I'll just add, I wanted to call out Nick Jensen at California Native Plant Society, who was involved with the addition of Moloch-Luyok. That was the name when asked that the Yochatahi, Winton Nation, and other tribes just wanted to call what was Walker Ridge. And early in that campaign, Nick Jensen and the whole California Native Plant Society provided a lot of help and direction. And Victoria Brandon and Lake County wasn't involved in the expansion, but she really was one of the key players in the development of the Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument proposal and getting that passed. This project on Moloch-Luyok was partly prompted by the fact there were proposed wind development projects. And one of the reasons that it was left out of the original monument was because of that. There was no active projects when we started this work, and we said, we got to get off this treadmill. There's been 4 or 5 projects coming by here, and this is a special ecological area, and I think it's the best place in the monument to feel and see why we have the Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument. And Glenn, perhaps you could talk a little bit about why it's so important, this place.
This ridge is an incredibly unusual place because there was a wonderful book about California geology called Assembling California, because the original west coast of the continent was somewhere in central Nevada. And what happened is plate tectonics pushed several different microcontinents or exotic terrains from the Pacific coast and basically assembled California from these various pieces. Some of them are visible in the Sierra Nevada, but one of the most recent and easily visible is Condor Ridge in the Coast Range, which is Moloch-Luyok. And what happens when these microcontinents assemble, they have incredible violent collisions with what was there earlier. And this can push minerals that ordinarily don't reach the surface. Minerals like the state rock serpentine, which is very, very much a product of the Earth's mantle and ordinarily is covered by the crust, right up to the surface, so you can actually see it. And because it's chemically different from the other kinds of rocks, sedimentary, volcanic, metamorphic, that make up the crust, it's a place where unusual plants can occur that wouldn't ordinarily occur with the ordinary minerals that are in most of the Earth's crust. So it's a very special place chemically, and as a result, it's a very special place biologically. It is like an ecological island in the sense because it's chemically so different from the rest of the landscape, and is like other places where similar geology crops up, that we refer to these as ecological islands in the sense that they're isolated from each other, the way islands are isolated from each other by water. In this case, they're isolated from each other by the Earth's crust that has more common plants on it, and the rare plants are on these ridges where the serpentine comes to the surface. And this has always been one of the most studied areas of serpentine, an ecological island, really on Earth, because it's the most accessible to UC Davis. We've had people like Eldridge Moores that had a long history of coming up to the ridge and teaching people about the unique geology there, the unique plant life there, and the plant life is incredibly unique. When we were taking people up to see Moloch-Luyok during the campaign, it was really incredible that every 100 feet or so, we'd stop and there'd be a new plant showing up, which is an example of the great biodiversity of plant life. And of course, diverse plant life means diverse animal life, And there's a 30 by 30 effort to preserve nature and the biodiversity of California and the rest of the world. And this is a major step forward here with Moloch-Luyak towards that 30 by 30 program of protecting not only the botanical diversity, but the animal diversity. We even have an endangered animal that's only in Wilbur Springs at the lower part of the creek. And it's really, truly not only an amazing place scientifically, but it's an amazing place beautifully, because so many of these plants that we'd stop every few hundred feet to see would be very, very showy, because one thing about the Mediterranean climate we have here is that there's a kind of a brief opportunity for plants between the cold winter where it rains and the hot summer where it doesn't rain. That spring is where the plants have to really show off and attract the pollinators. And the same things that attract the pollinators, the beautiful colors, beautiful flowers, are what makes it so beautiful to us appreciators of nature that go up there and see them. And you know, on a worldwide basis, ants are a much more abundant group in the number of species than bees. But if you come to California, there are more different kinds of bees than there are different kinds of ants, because we have all these flowers in the spring that appear, and it takes an awful lot of bee diversity to take care of all these plants. One of the things that, in addition,
can we want to open this up for questions pretty soon?
okay, well, just that's kind of an example of what we have there. And we also have some of the greatest diversity in cultures and languages among the indigenous people here, and they were great allies in protecting Moloch-Luyak for the first time. So this is a real tribute to the indigenous people there that lived in those mountains for the first time and came to love them and protect them, and they were great allies in this campaign. So we'll turn it over to Bob, and do you want to say a few things in addition?
I'll wrap that up, but thank you very much for that. Particularly, I think your mention of the cultural resources brought to the table by the tribes that joined and led this coalition. And one of the things that came out of that at the end was a signing of a co-stewardship agreement between the Bureau of Land Management and the Yochadihi tribe and Quetzaldihi Winton Nation tribes, and that's just cutting edge in California, and I think across the nation in a lot of ways. So it was really important, and that's exciting. We'll talk a little bit more. I want to grab some of your questions, and that'll be coming up. But a couple more things just about what we're going to be doing. And part of that is you're asking, or suggesting ideas, what you'd like us to work on. Part of that is just working on the management plan for the Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument. Both we want the BLM and the Forest Service entities to combine in doing a strong management plan that will take us into the future and not be looking at what things are like now, but what things may be in the future. The tribe will be, participating in that co-stewardship on those. One of my interests and Tuleyome's interests, and one of the reasons we formed, was about trails and access to public lands. And Steve, do you have that one?
Yeah, let me pop it up here. There you go. You see it?
No.
So
there it is. Well, that's, you got to zero in on that.
Right. So this is Caltopo. You see California. Then I'll zoom in to this area. There it is. The color coding is all federal land, right?
Yeah. Well, the sort of pink orange is BLM lands, and the green is the national forest. It's hard to see on here. I don't see the boundary for the national monument. But what this trail is proposed is, how do you see this place? And one of the ways you can do it is to do a trail through the national forest and through the BLM lands. There is a southern portion to this, but this really gives you some of the thinking. And east-west trails, this intersects with them. It intersects with the Nome Cult Trail. It intersects with the Salt Trail from the Salt Pomo Indians to Round Valley and Upper Lake. And it might, in the southern end, intersect with the trail from the Cape Valley over to Napa. So I'm pretty excited about this. And a lot of it's just putting together segments of existing trails, and some of it's just going to be on roads for a while. So that's kind of fun. So I don't have anything to drink because I can't right now, but Steve, you want to zap that, please?
Sure.
Hey, real quick, you could have shown the monument boundaries by clicking recreation over on the right.
Oh,
That's the
Okay.
way CalTopo does it, yeah.
thanks.
But I did want to just toast to all the people that worked both on the initial national monument classification. I want to toast to all the people that worked on Moloch Leok, which was an even stronger and more extensive coalition. And the fact that we're protecting these public lands for access for all is, I think, really an amazing thing to have happen in this part of the world. So thank you all so much.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
And Sandy, it's back to you.
So folks, I want to thank everybody. There are numerous people on this call that were part of our coalition. So really lovely. I see Jorah, I see Mike, I see Hekia. It's hard. There's so many people. I can't get them all on the screens, and some of the names are just first names, but this really was a coalition effort. And I want to point out, I've said this on a couple other things. We had a public meeting, and as far as we know, this is the only time it's happened. 100% of the comments for adding Moloch Loyuk to the monument were positive. And that's because of all of you and everybody who worked on this. We really built a coalition from the ground up that included everybody. We had conservationists, botanists, scientists, local government, state government, regional government, tribal members. We had tribal leadership. So I want to echo Bob and thank you